If you love O-line play, we're talking pass pro, inside zone, outside zone, gap scheme runs. Today is the day. I'm talking to Angus Mcclure, Cal O-line coach. Had him on my podcast recently, wanted to bring it to you. We're talking basic techniques, basic fundamentals, and how to get the big boys right. Coming up right now. Hey everybody, welcome to Elite Athletes TV. I'm Mike Pulaski, former 11-year pro quarterback and quarterbacks coach here at EliteAthletesTV.com. As many of you know, I went to the University of California, Cal quarterback, and that's where I really cut my teeth with major college football, understanding the game, learning the game. I still do the radio for Cal, and I have the opportunity to do a podcast for Bear Insider. And so as a result, I get to talk to a lot of coaches about a lot of really cool things. Today, I had a chance to talk to Angus Mcclure, and we were talking about O-line play, talking about everything from zone scheme and gap scheme runs to pass pro, passing off picks and pulls and twists and all kinds of stuff up there on the O-line. So I wanted to bring it to you guys at home. I think it's great information. Quarterbacks, you need to learn this stuff. You need to understand what those big boys are going through up front. Coaches, this is great stuff for you as well. It's basic stuff. We're not getting super into the weeds, but it's really good stuff, talking about first steps and kind of good technique for offensive linemen. And then we talk mentally about how to get those guys better, how to get better every single day as a football player. Angus is a fantastic coach, fantastic recruiter, does an excellent job with the offensive line, and he's a guy that you should listen to when it comes to playing up front. If you haven't done so yet, if you love football content, make sure you subscribe and ring that bell. Get notified every time we have new stuff coming up. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know that you like what we're doing here. And please leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you about what you want to see, what you like, what you don't like. Tell us more so we can bring you the content that you want to see. Our goal here at Elite Athletes TV is to help young athletes and young coaches improve at the sport. We have a lot of reps at the pro level and world-class level between all of our coaches, and so we're trying to bring some of that to you. So now I'm going to talk to Coach Angus Mcclure, University of California, Berkeley, fantastic offensive line coach. Guy really knows his stuff. You should pay attention because you're going to get a lot out of it. All the left tackles that I've played with, right, always bag on centers because they're always, they got help inside on either side. You know, the tackles are really the athletes. And the tackle, your left tackle's got to be your athlete, right? He's going to go against the best pass rush guy. But how much do you put on the center in terms of making calls?
We put a lot on the center. He makes a call every single play. So depending on what play and schematics that we're running, he has to declare what the defense is by understanding what the front is by film study and repetition. And then he's got to make that call on whatever it is. And so our procedure is to most of the time identify a certain linebacker. And then again, like I've talked about earlier, communication needs to spread all the way out to the tight ends. And so it's critical that the center makes the right call. And whatever that call is, we're going to live with it. And again, we got to be 5 as 1, and we got to do our jobs.
Yeah, 5 is 1, right? It's stronger when it's a fist. So that's the way it always works out.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, and we don't have to get into specific schematics, but as a quarterback, my job was always to stand back, sort out what's going on downfield, right? I'm looking in space. I'm figuring out what coverage they're running, where the open spaces are, where the green grass is, and knowing where guys are getting into it. Nowadays in college football, you have so many different looks on defense, simulated pressures, right? 2-5 looks. Like you have so many different things going on. How do those big guys sort out in pass rush who they're picking up and how they work that off as a team?
Well, that's a great question. And, we see a ton of different defenses in this conference. And I've been in this conference, as you know, for a long time. So I've seen a lot of things evolve in football. And, it comes down to understanding the schematics of a protection. And whether it's 5-man, 6-man, 7-man, and who is helping you and how they're helping you. And so identification is critical. And obviously the best way to do that is film study and then doing repetitions and walkthrough, repetitions and practice. And then again, watching it on film and really analyzing how we're picking up different defenses, whether they apply pressure or not. But it comes down to base rules. Guys got to do their job. Don't try to do too much and follow the rules. So if it's a man protection, it's a man protection. If it's a slide protection, it's a slide protection. You're protecting a gap, right? Obviously, there's men in those gaps, right? Like my old coach, Clancy Barone, used to say, in the history of football, a gap has never had a sack, right? It's a man. So again, we have to sort that out. And if it's a combination of both, it could be a man protection with a slide protection. And it could be a protection. We have to understand who the running back would have, who the tight end would have. And again, all that communication starts at the center and filters throughout the line of scrimmage. But it's a lot of fun. That's one of the fun parts of football is picking up pressures.
And it's like it's become almost like you look at passing schematics, right? As a offensive guy, passing schematics, you're running certain routes and certain angles, certain stretches in order to get a guy open to make a defensive back take a position or end up in the wrong place. They're doing the same thing on defense now. They're running twists and picks and all kinds of stuff up there, false pressures, trying to engage guys, right? Trying to get 3-on-2 rushers where they can get a guy free. There's all kinds of craziness going on up there.
We call it dodgeball. And,
yeah.
and that's what defenses are doing now. And again, you have to have great fundamental techniques to pick up a lot of the movement. When you see people getting through the interior offensive line, usually that's a technique issue. We're not staying square. We have to have great nonverbal communication skills when we're passing off twists. You mentioned ISO stunts when you have two slanters in a looper. Sometimes it's a double bump. And so that's something we work on every single day. Every single day we work on games and pressures. And it's a big part of the time we spend on it.
It's a huge part of college football now. Just remember, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Exactly right.
Anybody at home didn't get that, you have to watch the movie Dodgeball. It's fantastic. Let's talk about that. You mentioned zone and gap schemes, right? Pin and pull. Stanford game last year, if anybody can remember, Stanford game, the pin and pull was working pretty well on the outside. Let's talk about the difference between zone scheme and gap schemes, just generally speaking, for fans at home so they can understand it better. What's the difference between a zone scheme and a gap scheme for the everyday man?
For the everyday man, a gap scheme is when offensive linemen are going to work to their interior gap, so their gap inside them. And what it creates is double teams. And so the way I teach gap schemes, you're either covered or you're uncovered. And if you're running the ball to the right and you're a right tackle, a right guard, a right tight end, you're going to use inside footwork, meaning you're going to protect your gap first. If you're covered, you're blocking your man on. If you're uncovered, you're working to the next adjacent lineman inside, and we want to push the front. And certainly we can do just gap schemes. We can do gap schemes and pull a guard, which is a power play or a form of a power play. We can use gap schemes and pull tight ends with guards. We can pull, essentially guards and tackles and create additional gaps for the defense to defend. And so by doing gap schemes, you get double teams. You also could pick up any type of penetration or movement, which is would be a benefit for the offensive line. So again, there's a variety of different gap schemes, but if people at home can think of these offensive linemen are going to protect their interior gap first, I think that would be a good start.
And we're talking about, you mentioned it, power, counter, those kind of runs are gap scheme runs, right? Blocking down, get that double team, point of attack, lead somebody through, get on the next level. And so the gap schemes are really, as you think about it as an offensive lineman, old school, power running, moving guys off the ball, getting it downhill. And as we talked about with all the pinball or with all the dodgeball going on these days, any kind of movement you get up front, gap schemes are going to help out. Talk about zone schemes and how difficult they are to teach sometimes.
Well, we try to keep it simple also. With zone schemes, essentially, we're trying to get 2-on-2 blocking. We're trying to get double teams when we can. But essentially, everyone's using same side footwork, meaning if the ball's going right, we're all going to use our play side footwork. We're either covered or uncovered. If you're covered, you're responsible for knocking that man back and taking him over. If you're uncovered, you're coming over to help the same thing. So communication is huge on that. When you talk zone schemes, you have inside zone, you have mid zone, and you have outside zone. And so the offensive line will actually look very similar to the running back. So when you look at zone schemes for running inside zone, our offensive linemen are going to be square. Well, so is our running back. If you go to outside zones, we're all going to be on a 45-degree angle. Which, like all offensive line communication, it's critical that we understand who we're pushing to and who we're working with. So, the communication from the center working its way out all the way to the tight ends. There's times that, excuse me, tight ends be working with tackles. It could be tackles working with guards. It could be guard working with center, and so on and so on. So depending on what the front is, we identify what it is. We're covered or uncovered, and then we work the footwork that would take us to where we want to go.
Which is awesome. And people don't, when you think about running backs, you think about guys that read holes, right? They're looking for that hole, or in gap scheme type runs, they're following a guard, they're reading blocks in front of them. But offensive linemen have to read blocks too, right? It's not just I'm reading one block. If I'm running zone scheme and you've got a 2-on-1 on an outside zone scheme, you have to decide who's getting up at that next level. It could be a tight end, could be a tackle, right? Working together. How do they communicate that as they're working together? Is it a feel thing?
No, it's definitely a communication thing. So say, for example, a tackle is working with a tight end, okay, and they make their call with each other, and it's a 2-on-2 situation. Depending on the alignment of the defense, they're both going to use same side footwork, and the technique will vary depending on who they're pushing to. So, for example, if they're pushing a defensive end to a Sam linebacker, okay, they have to use the same footwork, the same second step, and as they push the front, we call it push peek. They got to have their eyes up, and they have to kind of play off each other. And we make communication calls when we're engaged on who's going to take the defensive end and who's going to come off. And that's how we do it. It's very simple, the terms we use. But as you can imagine, very simple, because you're in a combat situation. You're in the trenches. You got grown men pushing on each other. But we make a quick call, and that guy would come off to the next level.
Yeah,
and we
it
do a
sounds
variety.
simple.
It sounds simple, but you'd be amazed. And there's all sorts of drills that we do. When we're going our combo drill period, I'll have, one of the managers stand behind the defense. And as the offensive line and tight ends come off on that double team, I'll have flash numbers behind the linebacker to train the guys to keep their eyes up, and they got to yell what the number is. So there's a lot of little tools and tricks that I've used over the years that help that situation. But it does come down to great communication, verbal and nonverbal.
And for people that have lifted before, think about being in the midst of a max squat and max bench press at the same time and having to listen for communication in terms of where you're going to go with your next step. It's pretty amazing that these guys can do it. As I'm looking downfield as a quarterback, I can always figure that stuff out, but full strain, full stress, still communicating, getting it done. It's pretty impressive to actually watch it happen. And when it happens, it's poetry in motion. Let's talk about
everyone thinks quarterbacks make the decision like that, and they do. Offensive line, it's even faster.
Yeah, it has to be.
It's got to happen right now. It's got to happen.
Yeah, I can see what's happening. The offensive linemen have to smell what's happening. It's right on top of them. So it has to happen right in your lap. It's pretty amazing stuff. And when you watch guys that do it incredibly well, it really is fun to watch. My coach in the Arena League, Mike Daly, who's one of my favorite coaches of all time, used to say all the time, winning is the glue that binds a team together. And so getting a couple wins early, I'm not asking you to make any prediction, but how much emotionally does that help a team?
Well, it sounds like a coaching cliche, but step by step, day by day, right? Especially in the offensive line room. Every day there's a new challenge, and every week there's a new challenge on whoever the opponent is. But, my philosophy throughout my coaching career has always been we have to get 1% better every day. And certainly if we did that every day, we're going to get better and better and become one of the best in the business. And so I really pound that on my guys, just every day getting some type of improvement. I'm a big guy. I'm a big advocate of note-taking and goal setting each week. And so every day our guys write down 2 things they can improve at every practice. And a lot of times I'll have them stand up in front of their position group and announce to everyone what they want to improve on. And then we'll talk about those things. But I think getting 1% better every day is a great goal for our group, and we'll let the games take care of themselves.
That is fantastic. And it's a couple things that stand out there. One, accountability, right? At football locker room, football meeting rooms, it's one of the last places, one of the last vestiges of accountability in our society these days. But on top of that, having guys understand incremental improvement. Once you get to this level, it's all about incremental improvement. How can I get better this little bit right now? And so if they can understand that incremental improvement, it makes such a big difference in the way they approach practice.
No question. And it gives them goals, right? And you have to have goals if you want to improve, if you want to compete. And it could be somebody that wants to improve on a vertical set, or it could be a guard that wants to improve pulling and a horn pull. It could be a center that needs to improve on choke blocks. It could be, I mean, a variety of different things. And there's so many things that players need to improve on. But if you try to improve on a lot of things, it's just not going to happen. So we try to take it step by step, as I said earlier.
I love talking to O-line coaches about the X's and O's and getting down and dirty. And then those guys are hands-on. Your offensive line sets the tone for your team. And so when the O-line coach is talking about the mentality of it, how to get guys better, how to improve every day, how to bring that together, that getting those O-liners right will get your team right in a lot of cases. So Angus, fantastic. Appreciate him coming on with me on the podcast. I wanted to bring that to you so you guys can get a little education on kind of those first steps and all the technique that goes into the O-line play. As always, make sure if you haven't done it yet, you subscribe, ring that bell. That way you get notified every time we have new stuff coming out. Thumbs up, comment down below. Love to hear from you. If you're an O-liner, if you're a quarterback, any position you play, you need to understand what the O-line is doing on offense because it's really important and it sets the tone for the rest of your team.